people were signing up to go to war. There was no need to draft them. By the time Vietnam rolled around, people were starting to get more information. And they go, hey, I think this is a bullshit war, which is like the first time ever in this short history of our country where we're like, hey, this one sucks.
It was kind of no defending it.
It was, and then when you find out they were right at the end of it all, when you find out many years later that the Gulf of Tonkin was a false flag, you're like, what?
Which Dave Smith is a very hot name right now, and he went on the Joe Rogan podcast and just dropped absolute bombshells about how the world is really working and what's really going on out there. A lot of people have been telling me about Dave Smith. I've been seeing clips about him a lot over the past 6 months or so, but I haven't really watched him very much until recently. He's doing a bunch of debates and he's saying a lot of things that I think are pretty brave, you know, supporting Candace Owens and calling out the truth about what's happening over there in the Middle East with Ben Shapiro's favorite country and everything like that. And anytime anybody does that, they gain my respect, because I know, especially if you're on the conservative side and trying to talk about the truth about what's happening in the Middle East over there, you're kind of shunned, you're exiled from ever being in the circles with people like Ben Shapiro, who are kind of like the top dogs of the conservative media space. So Dave Smith has earned a lot of my respect, and he went on Joe Rogan and dropped absolute bombshells about, like I said, what's really happening out there, who's really running the world, and things like that. The media, all kinds of things Joe Rogan and Dave Smith talked about. Let's get into this clip here from the Joe Rogan Experience with Dave Smith and Joe Rogan.
Fun. It's fun to watch. I'm glad those people exist. They're fun. They're fun to watch because they're so ridiculous and they're so fake. And it comes off, it's obvious that they're not really engaged. They're not really talking about it like a human. They're just propagandists. And that's the only way you can do that job. If you want to do that job, you have to be a propagandist. Or you have to be some sort of straight-faced Jake Tapper dude who just kind of like straight-faces everything. But if you want, you know, you want to have the Joy Reid show.
Yeah, you got to go. You got to go for it.
Joy Reid things. What was that one? She got in some bizarre argument with some woman recently. I think it was a transgender issue. Was that what it was, Jamie? Where it was like it went viral because, like, I forget what the debate was about, but I remember it being just a preposterous argument. The way she was looking at it.
Yeah, she's pretty out there. I'm not sure what segment you're referring to, but she's got a whole lot.
But it's
a whole lot of great hits.
It's not, yeah, it's like you have to be on that network. Like you can't exist in the podcast world. It's not, you, what is it?
I don't know, is there something newer than this?
Absurd argument, Republicans vote on race night. No, that's not it. No. I should have saved it. I probably did save it somewhere on my phone. I could find it. But it's just these... It was, I believe it was some sort of a trans issue, if I'm correct. But it's just, these fucking people on these shows are trapped. You're trapped. You're trapped in this world of 5 minutes.
You're absolutely trapped. It's like it's like when you take drugs or something. It's like the first hit is always like amazing, and then the second time it's like not as good. Third time, it's like, all right, I need to up the dosage. This thing's not hitting the same. And like they just keep upping the dose, upping the dose, upping the dose, upping the dose. The same thing goes for like the woke crowd. You know, the first time they say something that's extremely woke, everybody's like, yay, great job, Joy Reid or Whoopi Goldberg or Joy Behar or whoever it is. Yay, good job. And then the next time you say it and they're kind of just like, yeah, that's like status quo. That's the thing. So you always have to keep stepping it up, or else you don't get praised. And nowadays, if you don't keep stepping it up and go to the extreme woke every single time, you get shunned. You get cut out from the woke crowd. People like Joe Rogan and Russell Brand are prime examples. They just stopped going to the extreme woke as they became more and more insane. And now Joe Rogan is getting canceled every other week by the same woke crowd, by the liberals, by the left that he used to be a part of. Russell Brand, same thing. He used to be a leftist. He used to be a liberal. And as things got more and more crazy and insane, he just couldn't defend the things that they were saying anymore. And he couldn't keep going to the extremes that they force you to go to if you want to be a part of the crowd. So there's media, you know, outlets such as CNN, MSNBC, who just continue to go to the higher and higher levels of woke in order to, number one, not get canceled and not get kicked out of the woke crowd. But number two, keep giving their audience entertaining content. You're now stuck on this hamster wheel where you must continue to up the dose on accusing Donald Trump of crazy stuff and just saying, you know, you can identify as a piece of loose leaf or whatever. You know, you have to keep upping the dose until things just get so insane. It's like the world is unrecognizable. The media is unrecognizable. And I think that's something that The View is also a victim of, where they have people who are supposed to be conservative on that panel. I think her name's like Alyssa Farah Griffin or something like that. The girl who always sits like on the right side of the table. And she's supposed to be like the resident conservative. And she's not. She never says anything conservative. She always just agrees with everything that the rest of The View says. You know, Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and them, they always basically share the exact same opinion, even though she's supposed to be the conservative one. And none of the things that they are saying are ever part of the conservative crowd, because they are forced to keep upping the dose on how woke they're being. So none of this is even about trying to get to the bottom of truth or trying to report facts or what's really going on in a news story. It's never about that anymore. It's always just, how can we up the dose to give our audience the next hit of dopamine, the next hit of entertainment? And other than that, like, that's it. That's the only thing that they're looking for, because that's how they make money. And that's all these things are. It's just, they're just businesses, you know? You're
trapped in this world of commercials. You're trapped in this world of networks and executives. You're trapped. And if you want to make it, you got to be full of shit.
Yeah,
you got to be full of shit. That's the gig.
And it's just like you point this out all the time, but it's just not enough time to have a real conversation on any of these shows. Dude, I did a debate for Zero Hedge a couple months ago on like the Israel-Gaza conflict, and it was a 2-on-2 debate, and it was 2 hours long. And the only thing I could think at the end of it was like, that just wasn't nearly enough time. It's like 2 hours and 4 people. Crazy? You get like a half hour, you know, roughly, not, I don't know exactly if we all spoke even time, but roughly a half hour each. That's not nearly enough to go through like the history of all this shit and what's going on.
It's true. I won't even go on if a live stream that somebody invites me on has more than 4 people, I just won't go on it, because I'm just going to end up wasting 3 hours of my life just sitting here playing RuneScape or something, you know, when I could be getting work done. You know, I'm going to be trapped in this live stream because I told somebody I'd go on it, and I'm going to be able to get maybe two sentences in the entire stream. So I agree with Dave Smith. Like, these panels that Piers Morgan does and stuff, they're fun to watch, but they're miserable to be a part of, because you just have all these thoughts, and then by the time you're actually able to speak, you forgot everything that you even wanted to say and everything like that. They are completely miserable. But I want to get into this other clip here of Dave Smith and Joe Rogan talking about something that's very, very important, the military industrial complex, and exposing how all these things work. I really like when Joe Rogan talks about these things, because he's talked to so many different people who are even a part of the military industrial complex and coming out and exposing it, and people like Dave Smith who are kind of like outside looking in but well researched on the thing. So they both have a lot of good things to say about this. Let's check this out.
Unique to Israel, like they're the only ones to ever commit atrocities, or that they're not dealing with atrocities committed to them.
Super standard in
sure,
terms of
in some
like
sense,
world wars. In terms of like Dresden.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. If you compare it to the worst things that have ever happened in the history of the world. But I'm just saying, throughout all of human history, there's been atrocities, and there's been genocides and ethnic cleansing campaigns and slavery and all. But at every single point, there was someone there willing to rationalize it. You know, like someone there who would be like, no, listen, this is what we have to do, because otherwise this. And it's amazing the mental gymnastics that people can come up with to justify something that is so clearly on its face just horrific.
But I think the difference is,
if you enjoy content like this, then make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
Is back then, your understanding of it was much more limited.
Yeah.
You weren't watching videos on it. They didn't exist. If you saw it on television or on the movie theater, it'd be a small clip that was played, and it was played before the film, but everyone knew that the reason why we're here is because people went to war and won. Or you escaped a war-ravaged country and you came to America. Everyone knew it. Everyone had an understanding of that. So when we were at war, people were signing up to go to war. There was no need to draft them. By the time Vietnam rolled around, people were starting to get more information. And they go, hey, I think this is a bullshit war, which is like the first time ever in this short history of our country where we're like, hey, this one sucks.
It was kind of no defending it.
It was, and then when you find out they were right at the end of it all, when you find out many, many years later that the Gulf of Tonkin was a false flag, you're like, what?
Which they didn't even need in order to be right. But then you find out, you're like, oh, the whole thing was
the whole thing, and then you go.
I mean, and nowadays they're trying to raise the age or widen the age gap in which you're able to be drafted. They're trying to include women in the draft and automatically sign up people for the draft, which I don't really have a problem with. It just kind of takes the work away from having to go and sign up for the draft. I don't really have a problem with that part, but there's a reason why they're messing with the draft qualifications, right? Because they know that if there is a time where they need more people to go to war, nobody is signing up. You have to be an idiot to do it, and at first I was kind of like, personally, I'm not signing up, but maybe there's a lot of people out there that would. Maybe a lot of people would disagree with me that watch my videos. But now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, why the hell would you even, why would you sign up for a war that you should have nothing to do with? Like, you did not decide to get involved in this war. That's the leaders of this country and the leaders of the other countries that are involved in the war. Let them go fight the war. I'm not fighting that thing. Especially because if you win, what are you preserving? Like, if there's an attack on America, right? Worst case scenario. Let's say that there's like an attack on America directly and we're at war. Like, it's not a proxy war between, us taking the Ukraine side against Russia. It's China versus the US or something, straight up war. What are you preserving at this point? The country has gone so far downhill. Like, we don't stand for anything. The things that the country was built on, they're all gone. Like, all of the morals and principles and everything people used to have, they're all gone. And they're the little portion of people that still have those morals and principles and still keep this country alive on what it originally was, they're deteriorating quickly. There's the great replacement stuff, but also just people getting brainwashed through the college system and through the school system in general. All of those ideals and principles, they're all going away. So what are you preserving anyway? Best case scenario, you win and Joe Biden remains in power, and people like Joe Biden remain in power. Like, come on, dude. You got to be stupid to sign up for a war. And even if I get drafted, I ain't going. I'll take the fine. I'll take the jail time, whatever. I ain't going. I promise.
What did you guys do with all that heroin money?
Yeah.
Where did all that money go? Because if I was the government and I was willing, just imagine if Eisenhower's correct, which is insane. How could he be? And that there was a real influence of military-industrial complex. If I was the military-industrial complex and I was willing to fucking start a war with North Vietnam for no fucking reason. For no reason. Yep. So 100%. I'm going to kill X amount of people and a bunch of Americans. And then you're going to actually make these people, these Americans, you're going to draft them and force them to go because they don't want to go. You don't think I'd sell heroin?
Like, that would be your line?
Do you think
narcotic?
Well, hold on. How much are these guys making?
Yeah.
How much are these fucking dudes making? How much?
A lot.
How many billions? This is what percentage of the world's heroin supply? And then when you see the same trick played out in Afghanistan, when you my favorite was Geraldo Rivera interviewing the troops, rationalizing why they had to guard the poppy fields.
Yeah.
We have to guard the heroin.
Yeah.
For the good folks.
Well, I couldn't. This heroin falls into the wrong hands. It could be lethal.
There's no way America would sell this heroin.
Yeah.
There's no way. The output of heroin out of Afghanistan, I want to say it was a 96% increase.
Total 80% global.
80% global
see,
supply.
you're exaggerating, Joe. It's only 80%.
No.
And it's crazy how now with the internet and everything, the internet is like the government's worst enemy. Because now with the internet, not only are we realizing the hypocrisy and the corruption that's happening in real time, we're able to go back and look retroactively at all this stuff and put together all these pieces that were so separated before. Like, what did the generals in the past have to say about us getting involved in X war? What did the advisors to the president think about certain calls that he made and getting us involved in this war or doing this secret operation here? And it's like, now that we're able to put all these pieces together in one place and we're all able to analyze it at the same time, we're seeing all the corruption that has existed for so long. And we're brainwashed through the school system to think, oh, America's always the good guy. And every time we get involved in something, it's only going to make it better. And it's only with pure intentions and things like this. And it's almost never the case. It almost never makes the situation better. It's almost never with pure intentions. And I'm not one of these guys that just hates America. Like, I love America. But we're definitely brainwashed. And whenever you start to realize the truth, it does make you a little bit, angry about how much we were lied to and what the country really is doing to its own citizens, but also citizens of other countries for the sake of just making money, greed, and power. It's absolutely nuts. Let me know in the comments what you think about Dave Smith's appearance here on the Joe Rogan Experience. It's obviously a 3-hour podcast, so if you haven't watched the entire thing, make sure you go check that out. These were a couple of the most interesting clips that I found from this podcast, but if you haven't seen the Joe Rogan Experience episode with Dave Smith, make sure you go check that out. It was really, really good episode. Let me know in the comments what you're thinking about this whole Dave Smith and Joe Rogan sit down.